getting away from SharePoint, perhaps, if you're tired of it. Are you tired of the clunkiness of SharePoint lists, or are you just tired of it? Now, most of you do use SharePoint because of the licensing and also the premium licensing for Power Apps in order to get to Dataverse or some other better data source. Um, and can you feel the restrictions and limitations of the bounds of your M365 environment? Today, we're going to look at an alternative of a data source to use in your Power Apps, your Canvas Power Apps applications, but also your Power Automate flows as well. So I'm going to show you how to turn your headaches into data triumphs. And I'm going to say that's no exaggeration. I absolutely love this NocoDB, and I'm going to show you all the reasons why I'm excited and why I think that you should find it valuable, useful, and perhaps exciting as well. One of the big things about NocoDB, if you could consider having several databases in one place, no code, no limits, no restrictions. Now, let's think about the data sources we're using, primarily SharePoint. Well, SharePoint site is going to be within a Microsoft tenant. And as you can imagine, the best data source for the Power Platform is Dataverse because it was designed for Dataverse. There's less APIs for it to go through. And so it actually is the best one. But, you have one Dataverse database per environment that you have there. Now we are live. I'm going to make sure that I'm keeping up with the chats here. Okay, looks like we're all good. I just need to sort of check that because I'd hate to think that I'm going live for a while and learn that nothing's happened. So you guys let me know if you hear any echoing or if there's any issues here as we go along. Otherwise, I'm gonna get back to it. Okay, this is a very exciting topic, and this is something that I would like to do in our next workshop. And we do those every Friday from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. EST. Now, EST is New York, or better yet, sunny Orlando, Florida time zone. So just keep that in mind. Um, Now, think about all the kinds of data that could be and should be used across applications. Now, if you if you work in an organization, if you're doing Power Apps, you're in some type of organization, unless you're a freelancer, right? And something that I've noticed as a developer over the years is like, I turn to the developer beside me or down the hall, or maybe even have a visit with the DBA or my manager. I'm like, hey, do we have a list of all of our cost centers, our departments, our org chart, all this type of stuff that somebody like me or you shouldn't be expected to create, or should I say recreate, because the data's all there. So if you could imagine everything being in one place. Now with Dataverse, the data is siloed within environments, and then you have several environments within a tenant. And if you use a SQL Server on-premise server, you got all your database in an on-premises SQL server. You have to install a data gateway, and I have worked with data gateways and have tried different things. And one of the limitations that I've noticed I haven't been able to overcome, and maybe it's by design by Microsoft, is that it's either difficult or impossible to access that data from a different tenant. Now, I run three or more tenants. I know I have at least three. I think I've got a few other test ones. But there are a lot of times when I want to access data outside the tenant. Now I know you can go into Azure and sort of link up tenants and everything. So that is possible. Seems like a lot of work and a lot of research that I would have to do. I want to say hi to Emmanuel. Thanks for joining, Emmanuel. Yeah. So think about now. I have a whole series on creating software as a service. And if you go look at my playlist on YouTube, you'll find a playlist about doing an onboarding application. And my whole vision for that particular application is to create it as a SaaS app. Now that sounds a little sassy, but what that stands for is software as a service. So that's where the software industry really has led us. Everything's on the cloud or in the cloud or moving to the cloud. And all these software companies, they want to charge us a per month or per uh, year fee to use that software, those resources. Well, now that you are an app developer, an app maker, why not sell your apps and make a little bit of money on the side? I'm going to tell you guys a story, and it's something that had a pretty big impact on me. And I'm not going to mention the names to protect the innocent. I had a very close person in my life who worked for a very small software company, and it was run by two brothers. So one brother was the software developer, the other brother had experience in business and also a particular field or industry. And given their two skill sets, their knowledge, they built software that grew. And this person in my life um, told me, oh yeah, the owners, they only pay themselves once a year. And I'm like, really? Well, that's actually admirable that they're putting their employees first. And she goes, no, they take out 2 million each every December. Oh, okay. And these guys, um, I went to some social events. I didn't notice anybody, living in a mansion or driving Lamborghinis or what have you. That's well beyond my pay grade, well above my league. I don't even know how somebody what that lifestyle's like. But selling software is really lucrative, and especially if you're using a low code no code tool like Power Apps, the Power Platform, NocoDB. Okay, so now this is a website that I run here. I don't really promote it very much. At first, I use this to take notes through one of my note taking tools called Obsidian, which is a free open source application, and then you can pay them for additional perks or things. One such perk is to be able to just to publish all your notes. And what I'd like to do is, have a page in here um, for each video or topic that I have. Now, if you look at this, related topics, so there's a little side nav bar. You go into related topics, go into data sources, and I've got one for NocoDB, which is what today's video is about, right? So yeah, consider having several databases in one place. Now I'm trying to zoom in here. I want to show you guys something about this Obsidian tool. I'm easily distracted and I digress very easily here. But this is all markdown. Every page within this website is a markdown file, which is a text file. It's definitely not markup. It's marked down. So the ML and HTML are the HTML mark. The L is for language. So Markdown is a very simplified version of creating files. In fact, I can show you a copy of this. But the reason why I went to this is to show you has this built-in graph. I think that's so cool. And I think if I go down here to the bottom, I've got tags and sitemaps, so you'll see all kinds of stuff. One of my favorite pages to look at to see this graph is you go into Power Apps, go into Canvas, and we'll go down to Functions. And this isn't quite done yet, so don't expect all the content to be here just yet. But if I go down here and click on function list, okay, so I've got all of the PowerFX functions we can use in Canvas Power Apps. And I actually had Perplexity help me build this list. Told me to give it. I told it to give me a category, and also I wanted a column to indicate if something is declarative or imperative, because sometimes you might need to know that. But anyway, I love this thing. So I digress. I'm going to go back and get back on track here for you guys. Now, I definitely do want to keep up with the comments here. Carlos says, good morning. I'm on from California. Well, welcome, Carlos. And then experimental archaeology with Grandpa says, good morning. Well, good morning to you. Okay. So I'm going to zoom in here a little bit. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that you wouldn't want to recreate, but I mean, just that is just a certain situation. I think the NocoDB will make for an excellent data source for Canvas Power Apps, Power Automate Flows, and we can tie into this through their APIs. Their APIs are great, and we can create a custom connector to connect to this thing and have what I would call a big boy database. Now, the big thing that they seem to be targeting are people that are using Airtable. If you go on YouTube and start searching for automations, um, typically not with Microsoft automation, which would be Power Automate Flows, right? But you got Zapier, you got make.com, which is actually sort of a cool tool. You have N8N, which is another automation tool. And a lot of these automation tools, they just like to go out and start using Airtable as their. So it's sort of like if you look at Airtable, it looks like. Type this in. I can't do two things at once, guys. I'm sorry. All right, so Airtable. You guys have probably seen this logo. They do a lot of good marketing, and yeah, you can go out here and let's look at this platform. So we get a little bit of a comparison of where NocoDB has come from. Okay, so you can build apps with it. Okay, but it started out, or at least this is what I'm aware of the company and their product. They started off being like this online spreadsheet, but the columns are typed. So that's what sets apart a spreadsheet from a real database. Dare I say Microsoft Access, not to be used in the enterprise. um, yeah. So if you have types in the columns of your data, okay, well, you could call that a database. Otherwise, it's just a spreadsheet. So you have an online database that you can create with this. And I was hoping to find some screenshots. I'm not seeing it, but I think there is there is a free plan, 1,000 records per base. And when they say base, they're talking about a database. So the prices start at, well, at $20 a month, I could probably afford a premium license to Power Apps, right? Um, okay. So I just wanted to mention that that's sort of who they're competing with. Okay. But guys, this is open source. This is amazing. Okay. Now, when you hear the phrase open source, I want you to think of the word free. Not only free in how much you have to pay, like free pizza, but it's also free most of the time, as in freedom. You have the legal freedom to use it however you want. You could actually take a open source code base and you could maybe even take it a portion. You take the whole thing And depending upon the license that they have issued for that open source project, you'll have to look into what exactly you can do. But you've got an MIT license, which seems to be the most popular or most used one, and it's a pretty liberal. It allows you to do. It gives you the freedom to do all kinds of things, like take it, put your logo on it, and resell it. Okay. Now I'm not interested in taking NocoDB and reselling it as my own. And a lot of companies do this. They create a open source project. Hey, it's free, and you got some freedom to do with it whatever you want. And so a lot of people are like, oh wow, instead of paying this company over here hundreds of thousands of dollars for some software, maybe it's cheaper, but sometimes it's more expensive than that for a certain type of large systems. And so you'd be remiss if you don't go out there and see what other solutions are out there that are freely available, um, especially the ones that are open source. So it says build database as spreadsheets. No coding required. Well, this sounds like it's right up the alley of the citizen developer that's trying to use Canvas Power Apps or the Power Platform in general. Now, I'm probably going to repeat this over and over again. Dataverse uh, it should be the de facto database in a lot of ways. It should be like the first database system you reach for, um, in general or by default. And that's if you have the premium licensing and all the users that are going to be using your application that uses Dataverse have that premium licensing. And that's not as common as you might think. I did a poll a while back, and I found out 70% of you are using SharePoint for one reason or another, mostly because of the licensing requirement. And so anyway, let me give you a highlight, just a little bit of a rundown of NocoDB and why it's so awesome and why you should be excited about it. So look at this. Like, you don't have to create a front end for it. Now, us here, we are the Canvas Power Apps makers, developers. So we create our own interface. But think of Microsoft Access. Access has always been really popular and has been stretched and pushed past the bounds of what Microsoft designed it for. And I think one of the great things about Access, okay, it is a database. Now I won't talk too much about if you look at it wrong, it might become corrupt, especially with a lot of data. But oh, it looks like my video's froze up. Let me see if I can sort of fix that. I'm not sure if I can fix it or not. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. And so while that's going, while I'm messing with that, as you can see here on my screen, um, yeah, we can see the data. And how this relates to Access is that they do have forms. They do have, I don't know if they have reports. Let me go back. We're going to explore this quite a bit, but this is amazing. So this big N, that's NocoDB. Well, as you can see here, we got the NocoDB hosted database. Okay. So it's like you got the database and you get the hosting service. So you could go here. Let's go over to the pricing. So it's free to get started. 5 users, 10,000, 1 gigabyte of storage. That's not bad. 5 requests a second. That's not bad. And even if you had a spring for it, okay, $19. Okay, now we're getting up to around the cost of the. I'm gonna enable my video here and hopefully it works. I'm not sure if it's gonna work or not here. So I think I might just hide myself. So right now it's completely free. Um, and the reason why it's free, it's in technical preview. Okay. But guys, don't let this turn you off. I can almost hear at least half of you saying, Well, you're going to end up having to pay like that one thing that I just said there about the premium license, $19. Well, for a dollar more, boom, you could pay for a premium license. Now, even if that is true, uh, and why I say if that's true is because this is open source. You could take all the source code and host it on your web server, and it's completely free, and you have no restrictions. Not even this 25 gigabyte storage or any of this. What is the database engine behind this? It is Postgres. That is an open source enterprise level relational database management system. You might have heard of MySQL, okay? But look, it integrates with JSON data, comma separated value files, Excel spreadsheets, Airtable. And then here's that make.com. Hopefully you guys can see my cursor here. Make.com, there's Zapier, and there is that. I want to bring this up. N8N, and I even think that is open source. But this is an automation tool made more for developers. And instead of creating Power Automate flows, you could create them in something like this. Now, I'd have to say if you're working in an enterprise with Microsoft data and Microsoft apps, and you probably want to stick as much to the Power Platform as you can, and not veer off to all these other things. And your manager probably won't let you anyway. But yeah, this is an open source. I am gonna add this to my notes so you guys can access all these things here. Okay, so I was talking about a markdown file. This is a markdown file. So the headings are achieved with these pound symbols. And I've got links and resources at the bottom. So I'll put that in there. Um, yeah, this is an open source. You can host this. You got over 400 integrations, and another one that I mentioned is make.com. And what I like about this, if I can pull up some screens of this, yeah, here we go. And there's whole YouTube channels devoted to. I actually use make.com to pull in all of my email into a database because I really don't care for Outlook very much, and I want to design my own interface that is, I guess, a privilege of being autistic, and you always have to have things different. I guess I don't know. I'm kidding, of course. um, so forgive me, like switching from tab to tab. I just want to make you guys aware of a lot of things at like a very high level. And so you can see here on the screen, there is what they would call an intuitive AI or UI, which I would agree with. So you could look at data in a grid. So what's a grid? Well, I'm going to go back over here to the main page like this, like perhaps a gallery with different things in it, but yeah, a grid of data. We're used to seeing data like that. Almost looks like a spreadsheet, right? Then you have a Kanban board. Okay. Let me open up this tab where I created a brand new account here. And so we have some sample views. What do we have over here? Let's click on grid. And here's some data. I'm going to hit F11 and go full screen. Okay. We got some data. It's not a lot of data. It's just 13 records. If I go to gallery, look at this. So we can have like you could almost call this like a card. Of course, a card on the Power Platform is something very specific, but the concept is very similar. And look, we can sort up here. We can filter. Okay, we could also edit the card. We can put in all the data to be displayed in the card that we want. Now, one of them was a Kanban. Look at that. So you can create like a little project management tool just with this NocoDB platform. A lot of people use Airtable, Smart Sheets. They use Jot forms for this type of stuff. But I'm here to tell you this NocoDB, if you know, if you're not going to stick with Dataverse, SharePoint, whatever, this is a really cool thing here. Um, so here, yeah, we could create a form so people can fill out our information. Now, how easy is this for us to build in Power Apps? You know, we got a database and we can have people fill out information. Well, no, M365 for the most part is all about inside the business. NocoDB, I could create a database or a table, and I could have a form, and I could do project management based on people from the internet, you know, or I could share it with specific people, invite them to come fill out this information. Well, that right there, it almost looks like it works. It looks like it might be better than Microsoft Forms. Now I'm not here. I've based my whole career on Microsoft technology, so uh, I'm just saying. Somebody from Microsoft is listening. Listen, I'm a Microsoft fanboy, okay, but not everything revolves around you know, Microsoft tools or any vendor. I mean, even Microsoft is fully behind open source and you know, collaborating on standards. Maybe not so much in the past. I'm thinking of Internet Explorer for many years. But this is just all around a really cool tool. And I know there's a lot of things I haven't mentioned yet that hopefully you guys will find as exciting as I find it. Okay, so I'm going to go out of the, you know what, let's just create a brand new table. So each of these things here, like this is a base or a database. And then these things are tables. So let's create a new table and let's call this employee. And I typically like to keep my table or entity names as singular. All right, so employee, we could put a description here. Oh, that's nice. And I love the nice, clean, minimalistic interface. It's very nice. And as you can imagine, sort of similar to SharePoint, what do we have here? We got a title. Now, were they thinking about competing with SharePoint? I don't know, but I find that interesting. And a lot of database systems that try to help you out, you know, they're going to have. I'm trying to find. There we go. Here, see this system fields. So we have an ID, and I would imagine. I don't remember if that is an auto ID like an integer, which I'm starting not to like so much. Microsoft does this with a lot of their stuff. They don't use auto incrementing IDs. A lot of times they use GUIDs or unique identifiers, and it's actually superior in that if you took the data and imported it into some other database, or you know, you're bringing in some data to production, and then you can't control an auto incrementing ID. You know, in SharePoint we have an ID, and it is an auto number, like the auto number type over in Access. SQL Server is called identity. But so I've got all three selected here. Now what do we have? Let's add new record, Darren. Nice, there we go. Now it looks like it's an auto incrementing, uh, which is completely fine. I will, when a database system creates things like this, okay, so we've got these three fields it creates for us, I usually leave them alone. Now let's open up fields here and let's create a new field. And what I'm looking for is a lot of times not called GUID, it is called a UUID. And I'm not seeing it just yet. Look at this FX formula. Now, is that Power FX? Probably not, but FX is for like formula, like in a spreadsheet, which is the main idea that Power Apps was created on. Currency URL, email, so on and so forth. We've got, yeah, I don't see a UUID. And a lot of times in database systems, that's sort of the case. They don't give you a unique identifier that you could put a GUID in, but you could use a single line of text for this. And what I would say is UUID. Now, universally unique identifier is probably what UUID stands for. And the default value, I would love to say, hey, give me a GUID or something, you know. In SQL Server, I would say new. Of course, it's case insensitive over in SQL, but I think that might be it, or it might actually be a function. Um, and you know what I'm gonna do is I'm saying, let's put GUIDs in here to use as a better ID. So I'll save that. Something else that I would probably add would be these things at the bottom. So we do have, do you see this created at and updated at? Well, those are just times. What about who created it? Now, I do not like space. I have a feeling if I hit save field, it's going to put that little space in there. And for us in Power Apps, that's not a good thing. And I've never seen a seasoned DBA put spaces in their table or field names. Maybe I haven't gotten out very much, but I'm going to create this created by and hit save. And look at that. So this is sort of, and I have worked with Airtable a little bit. So even though we weren't catching who created it, it didn't have this field before. But once I created it, it actually had the data and brought it in. All right, so let's see what else we can do. And I don't want to get too far in the weeds here. I just wanted to show you the types of things that you might be thinking about when creating, how viable is this? What's it like to create things? Well, guys, this is easier. This interface is so much better. I'm sorry, Microsoft, but it's better than SharePoint for creating all of our fields and our, and everything. Uh, in my opinion, it's better than Dataverse. Now, I do like the fact that they've got Copilot in there, and they gave us an ERD diagram, and they've also created us something to help with requirements. That's all awesome. But it's just not quite as clean as straightforward as this, in my opinion. So I got created by, I want to put in last modified by, just for the sake of. Now, what I'm going to, for the sake of completion, now what I'm going to do is hit this button and see if it puts spaces in there. I'm going to be disappointed. It did. It really did. Okay, look at what we can do here. Well, let's edit the field. Now, this is one of my big gripes that I have with SharePoint. And for all I know, Microsoft has fixed this, but generally speaking, you don't want to rename your SharePoint list or the fields inside. Uh, you'll run into some problems. I won't go into now. I talk about it a lot, so that's why I'm not going to really go into it. Now I'm going to keep an eye here on the chat, make sure that I'm responding to you guys in a timely manner. So we got Milos. Hopefully I pronounced that properly. From Belgrade or Belgrade, Serbia. Welcome. Welcome to the show. Experimental Archaeology with Graham Pop says, I'm used to creating apps with MS Access as a database. Hey, that's how I started out too. With VB4, VB4, 5, and 6, I would use an Access database. Actually, when I worked with Kurt, if you guys remember Kurt, who was with us here for about a year and a half, he was my mentor. And so we start off with Access, and then I quickly, once I went on to a better paying job. I think I was making like $10 an hour as a programmer there, which is back then pretty low considering I could make maybe about $15 an hour delivering pizza, which is what I did before I got into computers. Um, I have had trouble using SharePoint storing my MS database. I was thinking about using SharePoint list, but they're limited. What options are there? Well, I can tell you right now, and I don't want to make this about MS Access, but if I can answer a question like this, and it will take me hopefully under a minute or two, I'll go ahead and talk about this. I have found that Access is great at importing and exporting data. Okay, so we could link to a CSV file or actually import it as a database. We could do several things. And while I'm talking, I'm thinking I'm going to try to get my video to work again. I don't know. When I watch YouTube videos, I sort of want to see the person's face as they're talking, but I'm what my wife tells me is neurodivergent. I'm not like the normal person. So anyway, yeah, Access, and I've used Access to import data into SharePoint list. If you go look, I had a series about Northwind. So if any of you have been using Access, you probably have heard about Northwind, which was the sample database. And and the database really wasn't designed that well. If you think about it. I mean, there's all kinds of problematic things that are in there that I could go over with you guys, but I don't want to digress. And but what I will say, one of the big things that was missing with Northwind, unless I was never privy to it, which was requirements. So I was actually taking the Northwind Nexus database, trying to create a Power Apps application around it, bringing the data into SharePoint, all that stuff. And I'm like, I was having a hard time because I wasn't doing what I tell everybody else to do. Hey, you need to create, you need to have some good requirements. You need to have a good ERD diagram. Of course, add an ERD diagram because you have the ERD diagram built into Access. But I tell you what, experimental archaeology, if you do a search on my YouTube channel, or just go to YouTube and type in Darren Neese, and then also type in Power Apps and also type in MS Access. You'll find that. And I go over the different options. Um, Microsoft has created something that will allow you. Oh boy, let's see. What is my. Sometimes streaming can be very frustrating. I never knew it would be so so problematic so often. Maybe that, or I just don't have the right equipment or something. Okay, well I'm back. You guys can see me. I'm so happy. Um, yeah, so I've got a video where I talk about working with Access. They've got a tool. I think they may have released it as a preview, or maybe it's built into Access where you can tie into a Dataverse uh, database. It will put the data into Dataverse, and it will allow you to use your Access as a front end to it. And they also encourage you to create Power Apps to replace the front end and Access if you want to get completely away from Access. You know, uh, the whole um, there's been this ongoing drama in IT for decades. I'd probably say like 2 decades, but which is the people in IT are telling the business like, hey, stop using that Access stuff. you know, it's meant for mom and pop shops or companies like between 1 and 10 users or employees or whatever. And a lot of times it's like, oh, well, they're getting rid of Access. Or one time they announced they are pulling Access out of the M365, or back then it was called Office 365 lineup. And everyone's like, oh, they're getting rid of it. And that's when I was working for the state of Florida, and uh, all the managers IT are like, Darren, there's dozens of Access databases we've got to get converted before they shut this down. And I'm like, okay, I can do that. It sounds like a lot of work, but hey, where'd you hear about this? And they link to an article saying they're pulling access from the M365 lineup. And I'm like, well, they're just pulling it from like read this article from Microsoft. They're not discontinuing it, but yeah, I would definitely recommend moving that data over. Now, Access has got something out there that allows you to create. It's actually a different file type when you save the Access file, like an ACDB or something like that. And I always like maybe creating an Access. Now, this is really early in my career. Nobody wants to admit uh, if you work in IT that you either like Access or that you've worked with it recently. Um, I always like creating an access and then pointing it at a SQL server I had access to, uh, and then moving all the data over to SQL Server, and then just use it as a front end for some things. I mean, think about access. It's got reporting, it's got forms, it's got data. It's but at least get the data is the most valuable thing. So anyhow, I got to be careful not to digress too much. Sometimes I get one or two people, and I actually agree with it whenever it is said. It's like, Darren, you're just all over the place and that type of stuff. And that's what you get with a live stream and how my mind works. And with video editing, I'm a little bit of a perfectionist with the video editing. So I could record something for 1 hour. I could have condensed this whole live stream down. I could record the whole thing in an hour. And then it would take me probably, no, I'm not talking about 40 hours, but it would probably take me, probably work on it 3 or 4 hours a day. There's only so much video editing you can take. I mean, it's a lot of monotonous stuff. And it would take me like a whole week to get it to a point where I'm ready to release it. And with live streams, I'm just, it's just informal and I do go down different tangents, but a lot of you do like that. A lot of times you guys like to see me sort of debug stuff and I do that. So experimental says I don't have premium license. Yeah, most people don't. I would say the larger the organization, you might think this as opposite, but like when I worked for the state of Florida, we had over 10,000, maybe not employees, like I was a contractor. So just call them staff, which would include all the contractors in house and employees. And can you imagine? Like there is another MVP. Her name is Kat, and she worked with me at that agency. And she wrote a Kudos Power Apps application, and it was used by everyone in the state. And if you think about it, if we have over 10,000 users at $20 a pop now, I think at that point it starts to get a little cheaper. Maybe you're paying $14 instead of 20 per person per month. And if you figure out the annual cost of that, it's fairly significant. So anyhow, I got to get back to this NocoDB, but I want to make sure I'm completely caught up on the comments here. Dark Neffy says, "Oh my gosh, could you use Power Apps as an MP3 player?" Oh yeah, absolutely. Now, have I ever done something? Do I know that for certain? Well, let me. This is something that should just take me a minute or two to demonstrate. Okay. Always pick a Canvas app, guys. Model driven's no fun, and that's actually Power Pages now. I'm kidding a little bit. Let's call this my MP3 player, or I could call it Smartify instead of Spotify. Where are you going to get the MP3 files at? You might need to reference them. Again, I've never done this before, but first of all, you can go over to the media and you can add. Look at this. You can upload images, which is normally what people do. You can upload a video and audio files. Okay. So now if I say player, player? No. I'm gonna say WAV. Nope. MP3 player. I don't. What am I missing here? Multi. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go over here to media. You can embed, of course, images. People use that a lot. This camera thing is sort of cool. Barcode reader. Add a picture. You can add a video that's hosted in Stream, which is sort of like Microsoft's YouTube for the corporate environment. Here we go. Audio. So if you want to play audio, you got that. You can play a video if you want to. You can have a microphone. You can make your own little audio note taker. Isn't that cool? And we got the PDF viewer. And I think this PDF viewer has been there for years and it's always been experimental. Unless I'm mistaken, which does happen from time to time. But yeah, you want this audio. What is this audio thing going to do for us? Well, it can play something here. And then you go into the media. And I tell you what, Dark Nuffy, if you've got like an MP3 out there on the internet that isn't going to get me banned off of YouTube, put the link in the message if you can. But of course I could upload something and we could play it here. So absolutely. Okay. And let's see here. Experimental says, can I link NocoDB to a desktop MS Access front end? I think you probably could. I mean, what I would want to do, I wouldn't want to keep it in Access. I'd want you to get it into NocoDB and leave it there. Now does that fit your use case, your requirements? See, it says upload from. It doesn't say connect to. It has connect to for let's say a hosted NocoDB. There's MySQL or Maria. You've got Postgres, which is like an open source type of product that you might use instead of something like SQL Server or Oracle. So it's an enterprise database system, which is sort of cool. That is the database engine that NocoDB uses, which I think is just awesome. And you got REST APIs. Okay, and pretty soon you'll be able to query it with the structured query language, which is not to be confused with the Microsoft product called SQL Server. Microsoft are marketing geniuses when they called their product SQL Server. That was absolutely genius. So it's free to create an account. It's You know what we could do? I really like the AI tool Perplexity, and if you guys have hung around me long enough, you guys probably already know that. And I tell you what I'm going to do for you. Can I use NocoDB to desktop MS Access front end? I'm just going to paste that into Perplexity and see what it says. And I'll show you guys the result. Because this is like huge. I mean, I care about it from like Canvas Power Apps, but you can use it you can use this as a backup to all kinds of other types of data. It does a really good job bringing in these files too. I was very impressed. The answer that Perplexity provided, the first answer of a bunch of paragraphs, is no. No, you cannot use direct link to a desktop access front end. There are several key limitations. Let me see if I can pull this down here so I'm not reading it to you so you guys can just see what it is that I'm talking about. Okay. Designed to work as a web-based platform, connects to SQL databases and provides spreadsheet-like. Yeah. Convert your Access database to support an SQL database like SQL Server. And that begs the question, okay, well, I don't specifically see SQL Server there, but you know what? A lot of these database systems, if they are um, worth their worth their while, a relational database system will have it will there's a protocol called ODBC, Open Database Connectivity. And if you're a Windows person like I am, you could go into the control panel. Does the control panel exist anymore in Windows? But you could go into the Windows operating system and search for things like ODBC, and you'll probably find a tool. So as long as you can expose it, you can get databases to talk to each other or applications talk to the databases through that. Yeah, you create a new front end. Why not use Power Apps to create that new front end? Instead of trying to connect access to, consider moving to a fully web-based solution using no-code native interface. Guys, I've got lots of experience with SQL Server, so that's sort of like my favorite, but I don't want to host it. I have the Express edition installed here on my workstation. I installed the database gateway application here on the workstation, which is what you got to do. You got to install it on the server or a computer host that is hosting SQL Server, the engine, and then that will make it accessible to my Power Apps applications. And I got it to work, but I had to be in that tenant, and also I had to create the Power Apps applications in the tenant that I created the database gateway with, which is a little bit of a limitation, but hey. Um, and then what are the things? So what I like now that we've got Azure and all this cloud stuff, I like to go out to Azure and create myself a good Azure cloud-based SQL Server database. Um, and it's expensive. I mean, you could configure it in a way that it looks like it's only going to cost 15 cents per month, but no, no. And a lot of times I actually configure them to automatically shut off if they're not used for an hour. But if I don't do that, and let's just say the database is just out there accessible to my Power Apps, I don't typically open it up to the world. I've managed enough servers uh, to know that there's plenty of hackers and script kiddies out there that will want to try to get into your database server. So you don't want to expose that. But with SQL Server in Azure, when I turn off that auto turn off feature, it ends up costing me at least $50 a month. And as you can imagine, someone like myself, I might want to have several databases for, I like to create a database for separate projects. Um, Costs can get high, guys. Uh, so that's what I love about open source. You can find a lot of really cool free stuff out there. And you're like, well, I don't have a web server. Well, I've got something else to show you guys, which is, I think I've got a little, window here. I already brought it up for you guys, called railway.com. This is amazing. And I was on an open source repo and they said, oh, you could host this app over in Railway. So I don't have to build a Linux server. And of course, if you're going to create a Windows VM, well, that's going to be expensive because it's not open source. um, so what you do, you can create a free account here. I think a hobby account, if I go over to pricing. Now I have a full professional. I love this so much. But for $5, you get $5 a monthly usage. And you'd be surprised how much stuff stays under $5 a month. And it's like a little it's based on containers, not servers. So it's sort of cool. And I've installed probably a good 25 different open source applications. Some of them deploy very easily, and some of them I haven't quite worked them out. Of course, I have a limited amount of time each week, but that railway.com, I'm almost tempted to show it to you. I'll let you guys tell me if you're interested in that because I'm really bad about uh, digression or degression. Pull up and let me make sure I got the comments going there. And then Dark Nevi, I don't have Power Apps Premium at work. Can I connect to an Access database with Power Apps without the premium? I don't think so. What I would recommend that you do, and if you look at the playlist on my YouTube channel, I've got a series of videos in a playlist, and it's either called Northwind or it's probably called Northwind rather than Access. And I actually do live streams, and I show you exactly how I imported it. And I did have some issues. And if you think about it, Access, I mean, it is a real relational database system. You can have real relationships between database tables and try to import that into SharePoint. Well, it's trying to create lookup columns, which is how you do relationships over in the SharePoint list. And it doesn't really work that. I mean, you got to clean some things up after you get it in there. I'll just leave it at that. But yeah, I mean, yeah, get it in there. The thing is, I'm going to tell you the big sort of bummer that if I had a soundboard of a bunch of people saying which is, guys, you're going to have a premium license to use NocoDB with your Power Apps application because, and it is my plan to do all this here, but you'll need a custom connector. Okay, so if I go back over here and I abandon my app and I just go to the here within Power Apps, I'll go over to custom connectors. So we'll need to get started on this if we're going to cover this. And whatever we don't do today, we're going to be doing in the workshop this next Friday from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. EST. Will be a 4-hour workshop where we will be building a whole custom connector. And I'm hoping it to actually read the data in and show you the data connected, how fast it is, and all that type of stuff. But to be able to insert, update, delete, that's going to take more time. So I thought I'd leave that for the workshop and work through any issues that you guys want to go through. The whole point of a workshop is that you guys work along on your side or you've got your own questions that's related to the topic at hand. And if needed, have you share your screen and we'll work through whatever issues that you have. Um, there is a link within the video description, and you'll find how to join the insiders group. Now, that is a membership. You get access to the workshops, you get access to all my jumpstart kits, template building, you get access to my ticketing system course, you get access to the crash course. There's tons of stuff that you get in there and a community. And I still have a free community out there as well that you'll probably find easily just by using that link. Okay. Now, can I connect to Access database without using the premium? Um, I guess the one thought I had here, Dark Neffy, is I've heard of people doing this where you could have a Power Automate premium license. Now, that's something that, as I understand it, you don't have to have for all the users. Let's say somebody goes out to a SharePoint list and creates a new record. You could have a Power Automate flow that gets triggered from that, triggered in a good way, not a bad way. Um, And it could go off and do something. It could email people. It could, you know, put that record over here or do all kinds of stuff. And whoever you need a, as I understand it, guys. So licensing agreements, that's all legal. It's a legal agreement between you and that vendor. So I don't want to get in between you and Microsoft and the legal departments out of your two organizations. So I not only is it I find licensing details boring, but they constantly change, and I don't want to ever be held legally liable. Like, well, Darren, you said we wouldn't need a premium license, and they're making us buy a bunch of them, and they find out that we haven't been paying for what we've been doing, and I don't want to touch that with a 10-foot pole. So I try not to talk about licensing, and I don't feel like I'm an expert anyway. So, but what I've heard people do is with a premium Power Automate license, and I believe you can buy one per user. And then over in your Power Apps application, you call a flow to insert a record, update a record, delete a record, bring data back. And do you need a premium license to call Power Automate Flow? No. So that's what I've heard people do. I haven't done that myself, but I'll just throw that out there. Maybe look into it and maybe look into the legality because I can't be held responsible for that or Microsoft being upset with you that you sort of sidestepped the licensing. Okay. Experimental says I work for a mom and pop shop and they have 15 people. Okay, very good. So we got Jefferson. Now, how far back am I? I'm about 15 minutes behind on the comments here now, so I'm starting to catch up. I'm looking for a way to generate a PDF inspection report with more than 500 images. I've tested Power Apps and Automate, but it didn't support many images. What do you recommend doing? I have a solution for you. I can't answer it in under a minute or two. Now, what I just talked about a moment ago is my membership program called the Insiders Group. And it's a no contract membership. And this might sound like a lot, or it might sound like a little bit, but I do charge $250 an hour for my time. Um, unless you want to book blocks of time up front, then I could come down on that. But for those who sign up for the Insiders Group, which I don't like to mention prices in videos because it's sort of like etched in stone. Okay, it's under $100 a month. I'll say that. Right. Currently, that's where it's at. And for those that sign up, as a bonus, you get an hour session with me, and we could go over all of that. And I think it's high due for me to circle back around and revisit the topic of managing images within PowerPoint because a lot of things have changed and sort of become easier. I mean, if you do a search on YouTube for Darren East image, whatever, you're gonna find at least two or three. Um, what I the best thing that I know to do, and I really like this, is if you're gonna have a bunch of files, why not use a document library in SharePoint? Put all the files there and then link back to whatever related record is in some other list. Now I did have somebody show me the image field type within SharePoint never worked very well for me, and I would imagine for other people, but I haven't been looking at the SharePoint image type because it didn't work out well. And I had all kinds of things when I worked for the state of Florida, which is like I had these images. I even tried to use the attachment column. I tried all kinds of stuff. And if they hadn't been to that SharePoint site in like a week or a month or something, the images wouldn't even show up for them. So it's like all kinds of problems. So I started saving images like 64 base strings. And Shane Young has a video out there on how to do that. Um, And I would only recommend that for very small files, like a profile photo. Don't allow people to take their nice smartphones with 24 megapixels to take an image that's like, I don't know, 10 or 20 megs. Is that how big those files are these days with smartphones? I don't know. But because that would make your app sluggish, it would make your SharePoint list sluggish, and you wouldn't want to put that in your views. But somebody showed me this week that they were using the image column type within a SharePoint list, and it was working just great. I'm like, really? Are you sure about that? And she showed me and she taught me something. I'm like, and she's one of my accelerator students. I told her, I said, today I am the student and you are the teacher. I love those days where I get to learn something. Okay. So, yeah, if you want to book a time, a session with me, Jefferson, we could go over that. Um, I'm trying to think of, yeah, a report with more than 500 images. I would probably definitely use document library for that and write it in a way. What's nice about that, and what this person showed me this week, when you put an image up there in a SharePoint, especially document library, but apparently now with the image field type, is that it will take in the full res image and then it will give you like four different choices if you're trying to display it in a gallery or an image control. And you could say small, thumbnail small, medium, large. And then I think it's like full resolution. And I think there might have been one more, something a little similar in Dataverse when you have a file where you've got thumbnails. And that's really nice that a database system that gives you thumbnails, because 90% of the time you don't need the full res image to be displayed within a gallery with a bunch of other records. Now, if you click on it and the user needs to see the full res version, well, at that point, you can go do a lookup and go get it. And that probably wouldn't take much time. So I've got a lot of stuff to say about images. Because this session isn't about it, I'm not going to go much further into that. And yeah, you like experimental says Smartify. Yeah, instead of Spotify. Kenneth, Kenneth is in the house. I was trying to send you a link. Kenneth is an accelerator student. I sent him a link to actually join me here on the in the live stream. I was hoping that he'd be able to come in, but I'm streaming through Streamlabs, so I'm not sure how that would all work out. Or Kenneth, maybe you tried and it didn't allow you. Um, so let's get back to the program here. We're going to need to create a custom connector in order to talk to this NocoDB, from the Power Platform. Why use it? Yeah, interesting, cool. Yeah, it's just so awesome what you can do in here. Now I just created this table here. If we say, we'll create a new view. I'm going to say a form. And I'm going to say a form for Kenneth, because my student Kenneth, he loves forms for some reason. I don't know why, but for all my other accelerator students, I'll tell them to use the custom connector. But for Kenneth, he's going to have to go in and use this form that I'm going to create for him right here, right now. Look at this title. And I'm sure we could click on one of these fields and say, hey, don't show that to the user. I'm going to hide that field. Yeah, this is pretty cool. Now I think that is the description. And there's the title. Okay, I want to hit submit. Look how easy that is. This is awesome. I'm going to go back over here. Now, you guys are in for a great treat. And if I were to break up this live stream, this might be a good idea. to break it up over a few videos. So when people see the video, they don't see something like 2 or 3 hours. Like, I'm not sitting around for 2 or 3 hours to watch that because I'm the same way. um, you're in for a treat because I'm going to show you how to create a custom connector and how to pull in an API. So what you're about to learn here doesn't just apply to NocoDB. Okay, now there's going to be a few things that we sort of fill in that will be, um, but most of it will apply to other APIs you're trying to call, and you can do that from a custom connector here. Um, if you do a search on YouTube for Darren and API custom connector, you're gonna find a video that I think it was a live stream perhaps or something that Kurt and I did together, and we covered it well. I should say he covered it well, and we had some good material in there. So it's one of my most popular videos. So why not jump in here and do this again, but with NocoDB? And I'm gonna say, hey, let's create this from blank. Okay, so I'm gonna go in here and now think about this. As a Canvas Power Apps developer, or you're over in Power Automate and you want to bring in an action slash connector to use here, what name would you want to see here? I don't want to see NocoDB, and I guess I'll just make it all uppercase. So I'll keep it like that, and that's what I'll call it, and I'm going to click on continue. Now, creating these custom APIs, these custom connectors, I don't do this every day. So I may have to look up reference like, hey, what is that for? That type of thing. Now I did have a custom connector sitting there and I deleted it. And you know why I deleted it? I deleted it for you guys. So I'd have to go through every step, from scratch. I'll move my, oh, that was a little weird. Let me move my video over so I'm not covering anything up. I think maybe I'll make myself smaller like that. There we go. Maybe up here in the right corner. That might be good. And make myself just a little bit bigger. Okay. Now the first thing they want you to do is upload an icon. Okay. Well, do we have an icon that represents NocoDB? I might. And the image or oh, look at this handsome guy here. Look at this guy. Who is this? Of course, the things that you can do with AI. Does that look like me? I don't think I've ever looked that good. And if I did, it was 20 to 30 years ago. All right, I'm going to pull up my Windows Explorer up here and go find. I think I went through the trouble of creating a nice looking image for this. And hopefully I can find it quickly. If not, it's not that important. Let's see. Nope, it's not there. Let me pull up Canva. I might have actually created it with Canva. Canva is such a cool tool, and there's could be a lot of purposes that you could use it for, even for your applications. So, you want to know why I didn't start on time this morning for the live stream? I tried to go live by 10 a.m. because I spent like 2.5 hours on this thumbnail. Okay, so I'm gonna try to copy that. Not, oh man, there's something else in there. I'm gonna copy that, and I'm gonna make sure this other project. Oh, I don't even need to copy it. So I've got a separate project for square things here. Now this looks nice. It's not necessarily high res. And then I'll save it. I'll use that. That's gonna look nice, and I can share it with you guys. Um, in here I could probably put that image there just in case you guys want to use the image as well. And I download that. And I think what I'll do is I think I'm going to create a folder in here and I'm going to call it ing. There we go. And I'm going to right click on it and I'm going to say reveal in File Explorer. All right, let's open up on a different screen. Copy that. I'm going to go to that place on the hard drive. And I'm going to call this, it's going to be a PNG, and I'm going to call it call it GRA. NocoDB. And then I'll also say logo. Okay, so that should save there. So it's in this repo. So if you guys want to copy that image, I will do a sync for you and you can get access to it right now. And then of course I use my Obsidian tool to move it out to the web. So it's in my GitHub repository and also on the website. Okay, so I'm going to hit upload here. And let's see here. So Kenneth, yeah, the guy that loves forms, he says, let's go. For you guys who's not an accelerator student, you should join and take your skills to the next level. What? Hey, I actually agree with you there, Kenneth. I don't know. Darren has some good stuff. Yeah. We started doing some code generation in yesterday's workshop. I was thinking about having a live stream to sort of continue that, but I was just so excited about NocoDB, and I'm looking. Oh, there it is. It's up there. There that is, and I'll double click. Yeah, the accelerator student is for people who are very serious minded about their Power Apps career. That's how I would describe it. And a lot of times, I talk to people, they book a tutoring call with me or something, and they've never heard of the accelerator. I'm like, oh wow, I don't want to be like a salesperson out here. Nobody likes that. But for the person who's looking for something like that, you'd probably want to know more about it. Now, um, Kenneth is somebody who's joined, and based on my interactions with them, I think he has really enjoyed being in the program and has benefited from it. He says, I'll pull back the shout out with the form nonsense. I didn't know you have a sister. Did I mention my sister? Yeah, I got a sister, 2 brothers, and 6 kids. In case you want to know about the accelerator, I've got a whole video out here. There is the link to it, and it's me and Kurt pretty much going over everything that is included in the accelerator program. Pretty much we commit to the success in your career. You can expect to master Power Apps, especially Canvas. But we have material on model driven. We have material on all kinds of things: SQL Server, SharePoint, Dataverse. Just talking about all these data sources. But you get weekly assistance and guidance with your current and your future projects. There's different packages. Most people, I started off with creating just as one package, but people want to stay in the accelerator program. I guess that is a good testament to the value and what people get out of it. People don't want to leave after 6 months. And so some people buy the 12 month, and even those students, they want to continue in it. I'm like, well, I'm not going to nickel and dime you, you know. So I'm just going to create, if you want a lifetime package, I just create the lifetime package. Um, and then there's a 12-month package and a 6-month package. And so anyway, a lot of times people want to continue, but you can see what's all included here. This is like the accelerator in a nutshell. Or you can click on this link and get the full complete view of what all is included. You get several levels of support, but if you guys are familiar with my offerings, on Monday night we work on the Jumpstart Kit or template building in general. That typically goes between 2.5 to 3 hours, and you don't have to come to them. We record them. You get access to all the files that we create each week. Now, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, that's all for the accelerator students. Now, the accelerator students get access to everything. So you'll see somebody like Kenneth coming in on Mondays and to the workshops on Fridays. But accelerator students, they have the opportunity to come in there in the morning, on Wednesdays, late in the afternoon, or Thursdays at noon. And that doesn't mean that you have to come to all of them. I tell accelerator students, hey, pick a session there that is like your normal time to come. And some people don't even show up to the group calls. They just all of the group calls are recorded so they can watch them. They use these other avenues of support, so it's very comprehensive and extensive. It's meant to be an apprenticeship or a mentoring coaching program that is long term. What I found with people that found me here on YouTube or from Fiverr, they're like, "Hey, I need a tutoring session," and they don't even have a problem with the $250 per hour. But a lot of people almost expect that they're going to get everything accomplished within 1 hour. And um, you know, I would say sometimes people are going over their project, or they're you know, it's your time. You can use it however you want. If you want me to listen to you for 45 minutes about your project and the history and all that type of stuff, you're more than welcome to do that. You paid for the time, but I typically will say, hey, let's focus in on what you need. I want you to have something at the end of this hour, you know. And when I did that or when I first started out, it just felt very transactional. And what I wanted was a relationship that I had with my mentor, Kurt, where I had been keeping up with him like my whole career. And the guys like Kenneth and you other guys, I sort of want to hear how you guys are doing. Like, are you guys, did you move on to freelancing? Do you get the job that you wanted? And I like to help people out. So um, that is what I offer here. And if you think about how much, at least here in the United States or perhaps Europe, what you'd pay for a 5-day class, um, it's around that amount. Of course, depends on what package you pick. Some people are out there paying $5,000 to $10,000 just for a boot camp on a weekend, and that sounds expensive to me. But I don't even know how anyone could absorb all that much knowledge and skills and everything within 3 to 5 days. I don't understand it. For me, it takes more of a longer, and that's what I've seen in the accelerator program. Okay, so let's move on to building this. Okay, what is our icon background color? Well, I can answer that very easily for you. The icon background color, and what I'm thinking is probably this blue color. So if I were to go here in Canva and I use their little eyedropper tool, I could either go with my cursor disappears, seems to be what Canva has been doing to me recently. The first time. So there is a blue, and then there's a little bit of a darker blue, and I'm going to pick the darker blue just to get the hexadecimal value. And a lot of times when you paste over hexadecimal, they don't want the hex symbol. Now, I don't think that it made this look good, so I'm going to hit Control C. But over here, I should be able, okay, it looks like in this case, it does want the pound symbol. So I'm going to do that. And I don't think it has a transparent background. I'm sort of thinking that this is sort of how a Power Apps icon looks for an app. Now we should put in a good description. Now I'm going to save us some time and enlist the help of my AI buddy. I am in the process of creating my own Jarvis. If you guys have seen the Iron Man movie, Iron Man is my favorite Avenger superhero because I feel like I'm not a superhero. I'm just a mere human. But technology like Power Apps and other stuff, AI tools, is sort of like having all these trinkets and tools. I haven't tried to build my own suit yet. I probably won't. But yeah. Okay. So I believe I already have a chat where I built this the first time around. And I need to make sure at least it's up just in case I need any help. And I've gone through this before. I shouldn't need help, but sometimes I forget things. So now when you do build a connector, you can export it, which I have. Don't look at the number of tabs or in the tabs here. But it gives you a JSON file, okay? So a lot of these things that we'll be working with are going to be already in here. But I'm not just going to show you, hey, paste this, paste this. I'm going to explain it as I go through this. So a good description for something like this would be something like, if somebody saw this connector in your organization, NocoDB, what's that? And they could read the description and have a little bit of an idea. Something I will say here is if you just put in like, hey, this is my description, I don't think it tells you right away, but later on down the road, that's going to be a problem. Like it wants you to type in so many characters. So I remember going through that. And I am not going to connect through an on-premise data gateway. That might be more for something like SQL Server. Okay, so for the host, let's go over here. And I'm going to go find their documentation. So if you want to know all about NocoDB, also if you want to look at it over on GitHub, here it is. And I'm going to share this link with you guys. Put that in here. Here are the docs. Or, I'm sorry, this is the GitHub. And I'm also going to separate these things out a little bit. Okay. Here are the documents. I'm going to put that there. And then there is also maybe they start talking about it over here in integrations or, okay, spaces. So that tells you how to create a database, tables, fields, records, views, connect to an integration. Look at this. This is actually more revealing than the other screen. So if I'm logged in, I click on integrations. It's only showing me 2 here. I think I've linked this to my account over on NocoDB. Well, this is NocoDB.com. I have several things going on here. Several instances of NocoDB. Okay, so going back over to their documentation, look at all this stuff. Oh, it says coming soon. Okay, I'm a little less excited about seeing that now. But their API should be in here somewhere. Let's see, automation. You got webhooks. If you know about webhooks, I think they're like a simple way of integrating or an API like of function or feature. API tokens. So if you're gonna need your own API token. And what's great about having an API token is that it's it's a secret bit of information that only you would have. So if you're trying to interact with an API, you could pass in your token and it knows, oh, that token has been registered to this guy named Darren, and Darren's an okay guy. We're going to let him use this API or this database. Over engineering, let's see. Here we go. At the bottom, developer resources. Guess what? You're now a developer. You're no longer a citizen developer. All right. So a popular form of an API is REST, and that is an acronym. If you want to go Google that, I don't remember it anymore. I think the S is for state. It's been too long. Let's look at the overview of this API. Okay, so there are two APIs, and probably the main one that we'll work with today is the data. But during next week's workshop, we're going to use the meta as well. So think about this, guys. If you're an accelerator student or somebody who has been in my template building group, on Monday nights, you'll know that I actually built a feature in my Jumpstart kit that allows you to create SharePoint sites, lists, fields, and all that type of stuff. Well, now here with the NocoDB, I can do the same thing using the Meta API to create databases within NocoDB. I could create tables and fields and other things, or get at the schema information of something that is in there that already exists. Okay, meta, if I'm not mistaken, is information about information. um, so, and that's really what it is. So data APIs is going to, and I'm going to open this up in a separate tab so you can immediately get an idea of what we're talking about here. So here's a specification. Apparently you can download this. Now I'm going to click on it, open it, and it's probably going to open it in a different screen, different window here. And it did. I'm going to bring this thing over here, and this is what it just gave me. Okay. So the OpenAI specification is right here. Now, OpenAI is a standard for APIs, so you can look into that. But the specification version, I assume that's what this is 3.10. And there's a lot of stuff in here that I don't know what it is. X stoplight. Don't know. They do have a version 2 of their API, and version 1 is deprecated. And well, let's look at what we have here. Oh, look at this. We can upload files. Okay. Attachment upload. Look at this. We have an API And look at this, there's a table ID. And so this would be a way of doing like of getting back records. So like in SharePoint, you create a SharePoint list name. Let's call it customers. And then over in Power Apps, you would just say, you'd reference that SharePoint list and you'd say customers, and it would give you the records. Well, this is the way of getting at that. But you need to give it the table name, the table ID. Now, what is that? Well, if we go over here to one of these windows that I had open, and maybe I got mixed up here a little bit. Okay, so here is my employee table that I created. Now, if you're in here, click on the three dots. Look at that. There's the table ID. So you're going to need that whenever you call the API. And I've got an excellent way of keeping track of and storing them in your Canvas Power Apps. All right. You could list all the table records, allow you to specify the fields you wish to include. So you can query it. You can specify the fields. So in Canvas Power Apps, we have show columns, right? So you can do the same thing. You can name off the fields that you want to have returned. And I believe by default, it returns all of them. You can give it a where criteria. And because that's there, you pretty much sidestep all of your delegation problems that you might have with SharePoint. So that's very nice. Control the pagination. Yeah, so you can get, I think maybe the lowest is either 1 or 10. So you can create little pageant. There's no, although we can get back up to 2,000 records in a single query from Canvas Power Apps. Are you really ever wanting to show your user 2,000 records on the screen all at one time? Probably not. So yeah, you've got pagination, and you can tell how big you want the page to be of data. So I'm hoping everybody understands what that is. So I'm sure you guys have worked with typically a web-based interface where you might want to look at, you bring something up and it's got thousands of records. So it's going to show you the first 50 or the first 100 records. And if you want to see more of them, you hit the next button, so on and so forth. And I believe it gives you a way to sort as well. There's the sort. Okay. So if you say pagination and then you might have to go through the whole table to get it, let's say data at the end if it was sorted a certain way that you didn't want. So it gives you the ability to give it the sort order, a where clause, and you're not restricted to the 2000 with this NocoDB, because by default it's all set up this pagination. You just write a loop and it's going to tell you when you ask for the data. It's going to tell you, if you get a 200, you'll know that you're doing okay and you got some good stuff coming back. And it's got all the properties, a list of all the data objects that will come back, and you're going to see all this in action, as long as I don't get too wordy and too long-winded. And Mujahid, hopefully I pronounced that right, says, "Hi Darren, glad to see you again." Very good. Nice to have you on the live stream. So I just sort of wanted to show you this. This isn't something like that you'll need to memorize or anything, but you're going to see some aspects of this as we build out this custom connector. And it's giving us some sample data. That's nice. Okay, I'm going to move this over here and we'll get back to building this. Now, if you're ever given the choice between HTTPS and HTTP, I'll go with the yes. It's secure, it's encrypted. Okay. Now, if we're working with their API, now I don't know why I've got a group here. I didn't want that to be grouped. Now look at this. Now this is how most APIs are. You've got, let me see. It says data APIs version 2. We could get at the list of the records. We can create table records, like do an insert. Here's an update. Notice it says patch. You guys ever wondered why Microsoft called their update function patch? It's a part of, it means something with, and it's been around in the HTTP protocol specification for decades. And yeah, patch is how you update stuff. How interesting is that? Delete records, read a table, count how many records are in a table. So you can do all kinds of stuff that you might want to do. Now, when you call this API, you see how it's got like a little path? API, there used to be version 1, now it's version 2, so you definitely want to use the latest one. We want to look at the tables. Here's the table ID, now give me all the records. Now, if you get a 200, that is a part of the HTTP specification. 200 means that you're okay. 400 means it was a bad request and you're a bad person. No, I'm kidding. Something didn't go right. You had an error of some sort. Now, the data coming back will have this custom connector. Make the call, and it's going to get a list. And if I open that up, look at this. Those are going to be all the fields in our database table. And this is just an example one. And I think what they're doing here is they're giving you an example of every single data type that they have, including attachments. Look at that. This is a cool thing, guys. I didn't know this before. We could have attachments and we could get a nice little URL to it. Now, if we do something like this over in M365 or in Canvas apps, a lot of times what we get is like a Azure blob link, and it's not really. Now, I don't know why it's trying to. Maybe this is. You see the link at the. Let me point my finger right here. Yeah, this down into this. I'll keep pointing downward. Okay, this is so. Oh, didn't want to do that. I want to click on me, and now it disappeared. Of course. This is how I have fun, I guess. I'm gonna hover over it. See this little bar right here? This teal bar. It's got a URL. I guess I could right click on this and say copy link and see if that's a link to anything. And it might just be a sample that really doesn't work. It's like a dummy link or something. And it's taking a long time to come up, even if it is valid. And I'm going to go back over here. So yeah, you're going to get your data in something called a list, but then you're going to have this other property that you can access called page info. How many rows does this table have? It's got 5 records. Okay. And it's going to tell us, okay, so this is the page, and it's going to tell you how big that page size is. And perhaps when we queried it, we told it, hey, just give me 1 record at a time, perhaps. And we've got Boolean values. Hey, is this the first page? Is it the last page? So this is really good information to have. So you know if you need to go get more data. And you could have a loop that loops through. Let's say we have 20,000 records. In my opinion, like I put some data in there. It doesn't take very long. So this is a really cool data source. Okay. So as you can see, they're documenting defaults to 25 on the page size and defines the number of records on each page. Okay. Well, here's a question that we could ask. I'm going to open up. I need to create a custom API connector on Power Platform. I need to connect to all of the recent APIs, meaning not the deprecated, nothing deprecated. And I said to all of the recent APIs to get at all the meta info, all the data I can get at, including the meta information. Please guide me. And I'm going to start off this chat and I'm going to show it to you guys. Because you could either look at this. This is the video. So this is the video that Kurt and I did together about APIs. So there you go. And it's only 36 minutes. Okay. But we're not doing NocoDB. We're working with other stuff. So we walk through all these steps. All right. So I was just like happy to see that Perplexity found my stuff out there. All right. I just wanted to set the context here. Okay. And I'm going to ask it, are there any limitations I'll have connecting to my NocoDB databases hosted on nocodb.com as opposed to hosting it in something like railway.com or my own dedicated server. Let's see what it has to say about that. Because this is important to know. I think on a free account, they limit you. Now, where did their answer start? Right here. So I want to let you guys know about these limitations. So if you create an account over here on NocoDB, it gives you plenty of space and resources to at least check it out and figure out if you want to use it. There are no row limits per workspace. The business plan has a limit of 300,000. And I thought I saw some other restrictions over there. But what I was trying to get at is the pagination size. Because let's say you wanted to go get all 20,000 records. Wouldn't recommend it, but people like to do stuff like that. and because of that, I like to create videos where I try to do that. And then this thing right here looks interesting to me. I've got ADD, guys. Okay. But if I see a link to GitHub, I'm like, what is this? NocoDB on Railway. That's how I found out about Railway. Now, what is this repository here? The owner, see, this isn't even right. I think maybe they forked this. What is this? Okay, it's a Docker file, which is a container type of thing. Okay, let's go over here. And this is their repository on GitHub. Now, what I do when I find a really cool 50,000 or 51,000 stars on a repository, that's like a big deal. I mean, if you look at my repositories, not that I'm a big deal or anything, but if you go look at my Power App snippets, only 23 of you have started my snippets. I got a lot of cool stuff out here. But anyway, what I like to do, especially when you see these numbers, you go to the producer or, the account that has this and you look at their stuff. You might want to follow them on Twitter, but what I do is I either click on repository 26 Check 1, 2. Hello, hello. Wow, looks like the inputs, the input bars are actually moving. Not sure if this is coming up as the same live stream. This has never happened to me before, so I'm not really sure what's going on. So save the replay. Okay, so we're recording. Okay, we got that. Check 1, 2, check, check. And we're back. Hello, hello. Check 1, 2. Are we back? Oh, wow. I think it was Streamlabs that pooped out on me. I tell you what, with the streaming stuff, there's so much, so many points of failure. Now, here's a question. Am I echoing? Because I turned all kinds of things on. I really did. So I'm going to talk here. Check, 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 check. I don't think I need this guy. So I'm going to turn him off. And here's an audio. This is my best mic. And check 1, 2, check, check. I want to mute this guy. And I don't want any audio from my Nikon. Okay. And it looks like this is the only one that's moving now. I'm going to go ahead and turn that off. And we got these speakers here. Now if I turn that off, I can still hear myself. Okay, whatever. And okay, things look good. Now I need to backtrack. Would anyone be able to tell me where we were at right before we lost audio? And then I'm going to backtrack a little bit. He might tell me like the 20 seconds leading up to the muteness, what I was talking about. And I'll try to do a quick recap. Yeah. So I'm going to start to talk about what I think I talked about the last 10 minutes while I was muted. But let me know if any of you are willing to go back and look and let me know. What I was trying to get at is show you guys what the difference is. So if you do a self-host, and I think the best way to do that is with that Railway website that I was showing you guys. And let me make sure I've got, yeah. So I was showing you guys Railway shortly after 23 starred. Okay. I think the good news is, guys, I don't think I was talking about anything all that important. But if you go back over to these repos, if you see something out here that has, I would say anything over like 1,000, 5,000 stars, it's like a big deal. And I'll let you in on something. If we go in and say Microsoft, I mean, they have so many repos, it's like crazy. But we'll go into users. There they are. And then you can follow people. They have 6,600 repos. And I bet you that VS Code is probably at the top. So I'm going to sort this. Yeah, VS Code is number 1. Power Toys is number 2. On VS Code, you're looking at 166,000. There's all kinds of cool stuff you can find out here. And guys, I think what I'll do, I know this doesn't help you guys out, but I'm probably going to go back and edit out that silence and the troubleshooting. But okay. So essentially what I was doing was I saw this link about Railway, and that's how I found out about Railway. Um, so if you go over to Railway and install this thing, it's actually pretty cool. Um, Look at that. Yeah, so I came in here and I think it creates one little database, one um okay, so now you're seeing errors, and that might be like, whoa, what's going on there? But if we go over to my Railway and I do a refresh here, what you'll notice is they're all up and running now because I started using it again. And you don't have to turn it off like I do. I'm just trying to because I install so much stuff. I'm gonna I do want to give you guys like a little tour of this. It's so cool. Um, Now the navigation that they have in Railway is like I think they need some help with their interface design. Now it looks nice, but I'm talking about I guess the user experience. So I have a pro account. I think that's only $20 a month, but man, it gives you a lot of cool stuff in here. If I go to project usage, I think it takes a moment then to displays it. Um, and if I'm able to go look at the plans for Railway. You guys might be interested in looking at that. Um, because I'm logged in, it probably it's not. Go down to the bottom. I want to show you guys quickly the the pricing and also the templates. And sometimes things are hard to see, hard to find, but if you can get past that, this is amazing. So $5 a month, you get 8 gigs of RAM. So you got a lot of stuff for $10. If you need more of something, you can pay for more. But I do this and it's working just fine. And the guys are incredibly helpful. They have a Discord server, and they're really good at helping people out while using their service. And they ask for a lot of feedback and stuff. So look at this: deploy an app in minutes. You can explore all the templates, sort by popularity. Look, your own Postgres SQL. I have about 20 of them because almost each of those projects use it. You can put them all into one pot or one container, but I have a lot to learn while using this. There's that N8N, so you don't have to pay for another automation tool. MongoDB, Node.js, there's all kinds of stuff. WordPress, Fast API. So I installed this because I wanted to create a bunch of connectors that used APIs. Okay, now I'm gonna head back over to Restream so I can see all comments here. Okay. Okay. So if you guys have any questions about that while I'm here, let me know. If you guys ever do anything with Google Analytics, there's an open source project called Umami. I'm sure I'm not saying that right, but there's a lot of really cool stuff in here. And I came across Big Blue Button. I'm trying to install that for doing better video conferencing than Zoom and Teams. Let's 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 create our our connector. Let's get this done here. All right. So for the host, now this goes for any custom connector you're doing. What you're trying to get at, it should look like this. It should not have HTTP colon whack whack. It should look like, in this case, app.nocodb.com, and that's it. Now the base URL, this is where you have to look at whatever documentation you're working with. In this case, it's /API v2. and you can find that type of information. You see this? Yeah. Now you could host this here on your local workstation. It would be a local host, but we want to use their servers. Now I could use I don't have any data on my Railway one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to log in to NocoDB on my main browser. And I'm going to log in real quick. NocoDB. And I can show you some stuff over there. I tell you what, if it's not one thing, it's something else. I think my video camera is frozen now. I can't win. I can't win, guys. I'm trying my best, though. Oh, man, oh, man. All right. I am going to hide my video camera temporarily. And then I'll turn it off and go again. Sign in. There's my email. And then enter that in, sign in. And I might have to hurry this up. My wife might start yelling at me here in a bit. She doesn't like when I go too long here. Yeah. Okay. So I'm gonna turn my camera back on. Hopefully that works, and then we will get back to this here. Hello. Nope. I'm getting to the point where I almost don't care for technology very much. There's a quote in a movie called Pitch Perfect 2, and the guy from Keen and Peele, they do. I think they work for Comedy Central, but he was in that movie. He goes, "Do you realize that everything else in my life just works?" Trying to pull up a presentation on the screen in the conference room. I am going to give up on the video. There we go. All right. So at this point, we've filled out some preliminary information, and I'm going to go over to the security. Okay. Now the security, I think it's going to be an API key, if I'm not mistaken. In fact, I'm going to go over to. No, I don't want to look at that. I don't want to look at Airtable. I don't know if you guys just saw that. That actually is something you guys might be interested in. So this is an automation tool that's really good. Like you search on YouTube and see all the kinds of cool stuff you can do with it. Go into pricing, boom. Starter's $20 a month. Well, for $5, you can go over to Railway and install it for free and probably get at everything you want to get at. And yeah, that was a bogus link. It's a sample. I'm going to close down a lot of this stuff. Okay. And I am looking for this window. Okay. Okay. So I'm looking at my list of instructions here. Configure OAuth 2.0. Okay. Let's do this step by step. I'm now on the security tab, number 2. Make sure I'm using the pro version of Perplexity, and we'll see what it tells me here. Make sure I can see you guys. Wow, I'm just having a hard time today. That's not it. That is. Well, sorry guys, this might take me 2 seconds. It might take me 30 seconds. Not sure. Because guess what? I have too many browser windows open. Gee whiz. If I bring up Restream, it should bring me up the whole window. Okay, view the stream. Click on chat. Okay. And I also need to go look at where's YouTube at? I'm gonna make sure I can videos, go to my live streams. There is live. There we go. Click on that. One more link. And now I can pull up the chat. So I feel like if I can't see you guys' chat, I definitely don't want something like that to. Oh no. Joseph says, just FYI, we can hear you, but you froze. Okay, yeah, I'm not having a good time with my video camera. And it still looks it still doesn't want to work. So yeah, I think I'm gonna give up on the video capture. All right, and okay. 153. Okay, just some lesser limits. Okay. All right, guys. I think we're on back on track here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at. Okay. I think this chat is a little confused. And I think I might just pass. I do have another one set up in another tenant I can look at. That will probably be the fastest way to do this. So guys, setting up these custom connectors, a lot of people find it mysterious. Like and you know, it's not really that straightforward. It might be straightforward for somebody who works with APIs a lot. I consider myself a developer, but it's not something that I work with all the time. Okay, make sure I bring up my other tenant window, and then we should be good there. Okay, I think we're gonna be good here. Um, and it was probably like a good month when I created this custom connector for NocoDB. And okay, that looks good. Now, what we're going to use here is an API key. I think what I found out the last time I did this was that it was just more straightforward and simple. It's very easy to get an API key with NocoDB. So let's connect. Yeah, let's connect to this one here. And I'm going to go in and go get an API key. And I might have to move this guy off the screen because there might be some secret information, which an API key would be something you wouldn't want people to know, especially on a live stream. So I'm going to go into my settings in nocodb.com and I'll go over to API tokens just to show you what this looks like. I went into my profile and there were just these two things here. I don't want this. Oh yeah, I don't want to sign out. Okay, so I'm going to create a new token. I need to move this off the screen. And I'm going to call this Power-Platform Connector. I'll hit save. And this essentially is what it looks like. So I called it Power Platform Connector. And so if I hit this, you could see it. If I hit copy, it should copy it. Now I'm wondering if I paste it here. So I picked API key. The parameter label, if you look through the documentation, what's going to work for us here is XC token. The parameter name will be XC token. And we're going to use the header method. So that will be in the HTTP header, in the header request. Not that I expect you guys know the HTTP protocol, but all right, I'm going to move over to the definition. And this is where we're going to create our actions. Like, you know, if you use a connector in Power Apps, because we're going to need to create a little project and pull back some data. Anyway, I'm going to create a new app, and I'm going to call this thing NocoDB app, something like that. And okay. Okay, so with a connector, let's say probably the most popular connector would be Office 365, Outlook. Okay, so we'll add that. And I could put a button here that would, let's say, email. I could send off an email easily. And whenever you want to use a connector, you look over here and you see what the name of it is. Okay, so I'm going to say Office 365 Outlook, and look at all this stuff we can do. We can mess with the calendars and emails and get rooms, all kinds of different stuff. And let's see, 365 Outlook dot send. Send email. You want to always go with the latest version in this case. And the reason I was coming up with doing all this is we're creating our own methods of our own custom connector. Okay. So I'm going to go back over here and we are going to hit new action. All right. Now the action, pretty much what we want to do at this point in this live stream session, we want to get some records. And I'm going to put in, like, get records would be, pretty common to use for going and getting records. And for the description here, as you define these things, what you're going to see when you start to use your own thing here, if I were to like send an email, you notice that, we've got parameters that can be passed in, and we've got a description here. And so there's two different versions of this particular method, depending upon how many parameters you pass into it. In the programming world, the software development world, that is called method. Like, you might think of this as a function, which it is. But if you have a function that's hanging off the edge of an object like this, typically you'll call it a method. It's called method overloading. So that's a little bit of more information, no extra charge. And I'm going to go back here. And now we need an operation ID. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say get records, but it's not going to have a space in there. Okay. Now, this visibility, like, you could go click on this link, but as I understand it, if this is something that you're going to use a lot, or this is like the main method of the connector, you want to make it important so that it perhaps pulls that up more quickly in the IntelliSense. Now, I might be wrong on that, but that's my current understanding. So this is the general information about the action. So we have the custom connector dot get records.